Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. Alright, welcome back to the channel. Once again, we're at the Georgia Gun Club's 100-yard indoor rifle range. And today, you can see that I'm testing a new setup. I had not been very pleased with the groups that I had been shooting, so I sought some advice of some other shooters, and they suggested a solid front rest and a protector rear bag, which I have here. So on the front end, I have the Caldwell Rock Jr. adjustable front rest with the protector rear bag, and I've got it set so I only need just a minimal amount of pressure to change that, but we will see how this performs. We are also doing a test with 6 different primers today, and what we're looking at is we have a load that I've tested and it performs well. It's a 73 grain ELD match bullet with 23.5 grains of Varget powder, and we'll be testing Federal Gold Medal, Winchester Small Rifle, MagTech, CCI 400 and CCI 450, and Federal 205. I'll shoot a fouling group of those that are set with the Federal 205 first, and then I'll shoot these 6 targets. We will chronograph these. We will look at the standard deviations. These will be 5 shots each target. We will measure the standard deviation, the group size, and the mean radius, and get back to you with the results. Also, I'm shooting my Tikka T3X Ace target rifle chambered in .223 with an Arkin SH4 60-24x50 rifle scope. So we will be shooting these at 100 yards. As always, you're welcome to enjoy the music while I do my shooting, or you can skip forward to the results that follow. Alright, some of these shot pretty good. The Federal 205 that I've been shooting look really good here. So let's bring them in and check them out. Alright, I made a boo-boo here. When I switched over to the Winchester Small Rifle, I had been shooting at this target and I accidentally shot at this one again. So I don't know which shot it is. There's 2 right here by my thumb, so I'll probably just back one of those out, and it'll still have a similar measurement since those 2 are together. Shot 4 here. That's opening up a little bit with the MagTech. CCI 400 was pretty good. CCI 450, that's a Magnum primer. That was fairly tight. That's probably guessing about 0.6 of an inch. And then here, the Federal 205, man, I can't believe how that performed. Of course, I'm having to get used to a different setup here with this bag and so forth. This was the fouling shot with the Federal 205. I didn't make any adjustments to the scope after this. It is shooting somewhat to the left. But anyway, we will take these home, measure these with a Hornady app, and look at the mean radius and the velocities and the standard deviations on these. and get back to you with the results. So stay tuned. All right, down. All right, so I'm back from the range and I've had a chance to measure my targets and analyze the results. And what we're doing here is we're comparing 6 different primers with a load that I've developed, which has worked well for me in the past. And that's a 73 grain Hornady ELD match bullet with 23.5 grains of Varget powder. I've shot this load consistently in the past and it has performed well. So I wanted to test it with 6 different primers and see if there was one particular primer that it liked better than the others. All of these are loaded again with 23.5 grains of powder. We're using Lapua brass. I have the neck tension on these cases set at 2.5 thousandths, and the overall length of these cartridges is 2.38 inches, which should put it about 15 to 20 thousandths off of the rifling. All of these performed really well. We only had one group that was over an inch, and that was 1.06 inches, but it still had a mean radius of 0.38, and that was with the Magtech primers. But all of these performed very well, I would say. I'll go ahead and say up front that I'm shooting this rifle with a new setup. I'm using a Caldwell Rock Deluxe front rest and a protector rear bag. And it's taken a little getting used to, but I think with a little bit of practice, I think I'll be able to drive this thing just fine. So I'm going to say if there's any dispersion in my groups, it's going to be partially attributable to a new rifle setup. But we can also blame the shooter for that. Now, I did shoot a fouling group, and after that, I made no adjustments whatsoever to the rifle scope because it was shooting just a little bit high and a little bit to the left, and that was fine. So I shot all of these groups at that same setting. So with the Federal Gold Medal match primers, that's a really good primer. It's performed for me pretty well in the past. I had a group size of 0.71 on 5 shots with a mean radius of 0.29. It gave us an average velocity of 2,722 feet per second, and it had a standard deviation of 15.2 feet per second. There was an extreme spread on the shots of just under 40 feet at 39.9, but that was a pretty good performing load right there at 15.2 feet per second standard deviation. When we move on to the Winchester small rifle, the group opens up just a little bit in terms of the extreme spread, but we've got a group size of 0.79, but the mean radius did drop because we have 2 shots clustered here together really tight, and so that gave us a mean radius of 0.28 inches. We had an average velocity of 2739 and a standard deviation of 14.8. So that standard deviation did drop a little bit. Okay, so with the Magtech primers, we had a group size of 1.06, still a mean radius in the 3s at 0.38, an average velocity of 2751, and a standard deviation of 20.1. There was an extreme spread there of 57.7 feet per second. The CCI 400, we had a group size of 0.8 inches with a mean radius of 0.30, so really good performance there, and that's because we had 3 shots clustered really tightly right here. This red cross is your average point of impact, and you've got 3 shots that are clustered really close to that average point of impact, and that's going to bring that mean radius down for you. Average velocity 2756, and a standard deviation at 10.5. That was actually our best standard deviation of the day. Moving on to the CCI 450, this one performed pretty well too. We had a group size of 0.64, a mean radius of 0.27. Our average velocity was 2752, and our standard deviation was 11.3. Our best performer of the day was with what I think of as just kind of a standard basic use primer. It's the Federal 205, and here we've got a group size of 0.44 inches. You see this red cross and you see that average point of impact, and you see that all of these shots are clustered right around that. So we've got a mean radius here of just 0.15 inches. We had an average velocity of 2745 and a standard deviation of 14.7. That was actually a really good standard deviation. The Federal 205 was also the primer that we used on our fouling group, and that, even with the cold barrel, had a standard deviation of 9.2 feet per second and an average velocity of 2747, which is very consistent when you get to group 6, and you've got an average velocity of 2745, so extremely consistent on that average velocity. And if you average the standard deviation of that fouling group with group number 6, now you've got a standard deviation of 12 feet per second. All right, so those are my results. If you're looking for a good primer to use with your loads, I think all of these perform fairly well, but the Federal 205 was the best of all of them. And so that's what I'll probably be using going forward. I'll continue to test these others because I've got a lot of them on the shelf in there, but I'm probably going to favor this Federal 205. All right, those are my results. I hope you find this information helpful. If you have any ideas, thoughts, questions, please leave those in the comments below. I try to interact with everybody that comments. I hope you will also like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.